Ladies and gentlemen, every scar you carry, every heartbreak you've endured, every sleepless night you thought would never end, it wasn't meant to break you, it was meant to build you. What if I told you that the very pain you've been running from is the exact fuel you need to unleash the life you've been dreaming of? Because the truth is, there's one mental shift, just one, that can take every wound, every setback, every failure, and transform it into unstoppable purpose. And once you make that shift, nothing in this world can stop you. Stay with me. And imagine for a moment that every ounce of pain you've ever felt, every disappointment, every rejection, every heartbreak, every moment when you were brought to your knees, it wasn't there to destroy you, but to create you. What if the pain you've carried wasn't a curse, but a gift in disguise, waiting for you to unlock it? Because the truth is, pain is the greatest raw material for transformation when you learn how to harness it. And the difference between people who stay stuck in their suffering and those who rise to greatness comes down to one mental shift. Stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start declaring, this is happening for me. And that shift changes everything. When you believe life is happening to you, you feel powerless. You're at the mercy of circumstances, at the mercy of other people's decisions, at the mercy of luck. But when you step into the belief that life is happening for you, suddenly the pain that once buried you becomes the very soil from which your power grows. Suddenly the betrayal, the failure, the loss, those things that felt unbearable become the exact fuel you needed to ignite your purpose. It's not about denying the pain, it's about alchemizing it. And think about it, the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. Diamonds are formed under immense pressure. The oak tree only stands tall because the wind challenged it to grow stronger roots. And so it is with you. Every single hardship you've endured has been shaping you, preparing you, strengthening you. You might not have asked for the pain, but you get to decide what to do with it. Will you let it define you, or will you let it refine you? And there is a part of you right now that knows you were made for more. You feel it deep inside your chest, beneath the noise of self-doubt and fear. There's a voice that whispers, this is not the end of your story. That whisper is your purpose calling. But here's the truth. You will never fully step into that purpose until you decide to stop running from your pain and start using it. Because pain, when embraced, becomes clarity. It reveals what you care about, what you value, what you're willing to fight for. And think back to the most painful experience in your life. Maybe it was a loss. Maybe it was a betrayal. Maybe it was a dream that crumbled in front of you. At that moment, you felt powerless. But if you zoom out, if you look at who you are today compared to who you were before that event, you'll see that pain changed you. It carved something deeper into you. Maybe it gave you more compassion. Maybe it gave you more grit. Maybe it gave you a hunger to never feel that way again. That pain gave you a gift. And when you realize that, when you own it, you stop being a victim of your story and start becoming the author of it. And the difference is not what happens to you. The difference is the meaning you attach to it. The meaning is everything. Two people can go through the same heartbreak, the same loss, the same rejection. One will crumble and the other will rise. The event is not what makes the difference. The meaning does. If you decide that your pain means you're broken, you'll live broken. If you decide your pain means you're chosen to stay, or strength others can't imagine, you'll live empowered. Meaning creates destiny. And so what if, from this moment forward, you decided that your pain was not punishment, it was preparation? What if you chose to believe that every wound you carry is proof that you survived, that you endured, that you're stronger than you thought? Because when you believe that, you start to see your scars not as something to hide, but as something to display, because they are evidence of your resilience. And resilience is the birthplace of unstoppable purpose. And purpose doesn't come from comfort. Comfort zones don't make warriors. Comfort zones don't create leaders. Comfort zones don't inspire change. Purpose is born in the fire. Purpose is born when life knocks you down and you decide to get back up, not just for yourself, but for others. The moment you realize your story, your struggle, your scars can serve someone else, that's when pain turns into power. That's when you stop living just for survival and start living for impact. And think of the people who inspire you most. They are not the ones who had it easy. They are the ones who endured the storm and came back stronger. They are the ones who turned their private hell into a public mission. They are the ones who looked at their pain and said, I will not let this go to waste. I will use this. I will channel this. I will make this the reason I rise. And you can too. And every time life knocks you down, you have a choice. You can stay there looking at the ground, replaying your suffering, convincing yourself it's unfair. Or you can get up, stare back at life and declare, you thought this would break me, but it built me. You thought this would bury me, but I'm planting seeds. You thought this was the end, but it's the beginning. That declaration shifts your entire identity. You stop being the person who suffered and start being the person who conquers. And here's the most powerful part. When you turn your Pain into purpose, you're no longer limited by willpower alone. Purpose is fuel that never runs out. Pain is heavy when you carry it, but when you convert it into purpose, it becomes light, it becomes energy, it becomes drive. Think about the parents who lost a child and then created a foundation to save others. Think about the person who battled addiction and then helped thousands recover. Think about the one who faced poverty and then built opportunities for the next generation. Pain became purpose, and purpose became unstoppable, and you have that same power within you. The only difference is the decision to no longer let your pain be a chain around your neck, but a torch in your hand. The decision to stop asking, why me, and start asking, how can I use this? The decision to no longer be imprisoned by your past, but to use your past as the reason you step into your future with more fire than ever before. And it all comes down to that mental shift. One shift, from victim to victor. From life happening to me to life happening for me. From pain as punishment to pain as preparation. And once you make that shift, you become unstoppable. Nothing can hold you back because nothing can happen to you that you cannot use. Nothing can destroy you because everything can serve you. And so stand tall in your pain. Own it. Embrace it. Harness it. Because when you do, your life is no longer driven by fear, but by purpose. And purpose, once ignited, cannot be extinguished. It becomes your compass, your fire, your reason. It turns every tear you've shed into a seed of strength. It turns every scar into a story of survival. It turns every setback into a setup for the life you were born to live. And absolutely, here's a direct continuation of your speech, expanded by another 1,000 words, starting exactly where the first part ended and keeping the same powerful motivational rhythm and power and purpose, once ignited, cannot be extinguished. It becomes your compass, your fire, your reason. It turns every tear you've shed into a seed of strength. It turns every scar into a story of survival. It turns every setback into a setup for the life you were born to live. And now think about the times in your life when you thought you couldn't go on, when the weight of the world pressed so heavily on your shoulders that it felt impossible to take another step. Yet here you are. You survived what you thought would break you. And if you're still breathing, if your heart is still beating, then there's proof that your story isn't finished. That very survival is a message. It means there is still more for you to give, more for you to create, more for you to become. But here's the critical choice. Do you just survive or do you rise? Because survival is not enough. Survival is staying afloat, but purpose is learning to build a ship and set sail. Pain can drown you if you allow it. But if you learn to use it, that pain becomes the very wood, the very nails, the very sails of the ship that carries you to your destiny. And the most powerful people on this planet are not those who avoided pain. They are those who leveraged it. They looked at the very thing that could have destroyed them and said, no, this is my fuel. They took the ashes of their past and built an unshakable foundation for their future. They used their wounds as wisdom. And if they could do it, so can you. And you see, every emotion has a purpose. Fear is trying to protect you. Anger is pointing out where your boundaries are being crossed. Sadness is showing you what you valued. Pain is highlighting what matters most. It's life's way of grabbing your attention and saying, this is important, pay attention. But here's the key. Don't just feel it, use it. Don't just endure it, channel it. When you take control of the meaning behind your emotions, you stop being controlled by them. And the reason most people stay trapped in cycles of suffering is because they play the story without rewriting it. They rehearse their pain, but never release its power. They live inside of old chapters, never realizing the pen has been in their hands the whole time. Your life is not a book that someone else is writing, it's yours. And the greatest turnaround begins when you start rewriting the story so that your pain is not the villain, but the catalyst. And imagine standing in front of a wall that blocks your path. That wall is your pain. You have three options. You can stare at it forever, feeling hopeless. You can run from it, pretending it's not there, but it will keep appearing. Or you can climb it, break through it, and discover the strength you never knew you had. And when you do, that wall that once seemed impossible becomes a monument of what you overcame. Every challenge you conquer becomes a landmark in your journey, a reminder that nothing can truly stop you. And think about how many lives could be impacted if you chose to use your story. Somewhere out there is a person who feels hopeless, who thinks they're the only one suffering, who believes no one understands, and then they hear your story. They see how you turned your pain into power. Suddenly, their hope is reignited. Suddenly, they believe it's possible for them too. That is the ripple effect of purpose. Your pain doesn't just set you free, it sets others free. And then maybe that's why you went through it. Maybe the very reason you faced those battles was so that you could be the one to shine a light for someone else still stuck in the dark. Because the truth is, people don't connect to perfection. They don't connect to flawless victories. They connect to real. They connect to scars. They connect to the raw humanity of someone who's walked through the fire and came back with lessons to share. And you are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by what you do with what had happened to you. If your pain was deep, then your purpose can be greater. If your wounds were heavy, then your strength will be massive. If your trials were long, then your triumph can echo even longer. The magnitude of your pain is only a reflection of the magnitude of your potential if you choose to use it. And so many people waste their pain. They numb it, hide from it, bury it. They pretend it's not there, but what you resist will persist. Pain ignored becomes suffering. Pain embraced becomes transformation. You don't grow by avoiding discomfort. You grow by leaning into it, by extracting the lesson, by allowing it to carve out the best version of you. Growth always requires stretching beyond what's easy, stepping into what feels hard, embracing the pressure that expands your capacity. And your purpose is not some mystery floating in the sky waiting to be discovered. It's hidden in the experiences you've lived through, the struggles you've survived, the moments that broke you, and the strength you had to build to rise again. Purpose is the meaning you attach to your journey, and the most unstoppable version of you will always come from the parts of your story you thought disqualified you. And there is nothing more powerful than a human being who has made peace with their pain and chosen to use it as fuel. Because once you've faced the worst and survived, what else can stop you? What rejection could break you when you've already risen from ashes? What failure could defeat you when you've already proven you can rebuild? What storm could drown you when you've already learned to breathe underwater? Pain builds an immunity to fear if you let it, because once you've embraced it, you realize nothing can touch the person who is willing to use everything. And here's what happens when you make this shift. You stop fearing pain. You stop running from challenges. You stop avoiding the unknown. Instead, you welcome it, because you know every experience is either a blessing or a lesson, and either one lives your purpose. Suddenly, life doesn't scare you anymore. It excites you, because you know whatever comes, you will turn it into fuel. And look at your life right now. Look at the things you've called setbacks, the betrayals, the losses, the failures. What if you relabeled them? What if you decided those weren't setbacks at all, but setups? What if every closed door was redirecting you? What if every delay was protecting you? What if every heartbreak was shaping you for a love greater than you could imagine? What if every pain was preparing you for a purpose that requires depth and strength most people never cultivate? That shift in meaning is the shift that unlocks everything. And because when you carry that belief, you stop being afraid of the pain. You stop seeing it as punishment. You start seeing it as preparation. And when you live that way, nothing has power over you anymore. You are unshakable because you know that every hit you take is building you. You are unstoppable because every challenge is only sharpening your edge. And the people who create extraordinary lives are not the ones who avoid pain. They're the ones who decide nothing will be wasted. Every tear, every wound, every disappointment, I will use it. I will turn it into wisdom, into strength, into impact. And that decision makes you dangerous in the best way possible, because life can throw anything at you and you'll find a way to turn it into your advantage. And when that becomes your way of life, when pain is no longer an enemy but an ally, you discover a freedom most people never experience. You are free from fear, free from bitterness, free from the weight of your past, because you've turned all of it into rocket fuel for your future. And there is nothing more powerful than a human being who has made that shift. And of course, here's the direct continuation of your speech, expanded by another 1,000 words, beginning exactly where the second part ended and carrying the same motivational fire without headings or endings. And there is nothing more powerful than a human being who has made that shift. And because once you step into that state, life itself changes shape. You stop living in reaction, waiting for circumstances to dictate your emotions, your direction, your worth. You start living in creation. You stop being pulled by the past and start being propelled by the future you've chosen. That's the power of turning pain into purpose. It doesn't just heal you, it transforms the way you move through the world. And think about the energy you carry when you walk into a room. When you've lived through storms, when you've endured nights that seemed endless, when you've felt the sting of heartbreak and the burn of failure but refused to be crushed, people feel that. They may not know your story, but they sense your presence. They feel the strength in your voice, the certainty in your posture, the fire in your eyes, because purpose radiates. It's not something you wear, it's something you become. And when you become it, opportunities open that once seemed impossible. Doors appear where there used to be walls. Connections form that align with your destiny. Because the universe has a strange way of moving things in favor of those who refuse to be defeated. The people who have chosen to use their pain as fuel carry a magnetism that draws possibility toward them. They become unstoppable forces of nature. But here's the catch. You cannot fake this. You cannot trick your soul into purpose. You cannot slap a smile on top of unresolved pain and call it growth. No. True transformation comes from doing the hard work of facing it head on, sitting with it, feeling it, and then aching the conscious decision, I will not let this break me. I will not waste this. I will turn this into something meaningful. That authenticity is what gives you power, because when you've walked through the fire and you own it, you no longer need to hide. And you know what happens when you stop hiding? You stop living small. You stop playing safe. You stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. Because the truth is, pain often teaches you just how short and precious life really is. When you've been knocked down, you realize you don't have time to play at half capacity. You don't have time to wait for the right moment. You don't have time to wonder if you're ready. Pain makes you hungry. Pain makes you urgent. Pain makes you decide, if I've survived this, I'm not wasting another second. And that urgency, that hunger, becomes the fire that pushes you beyond limits you once thought were impossible. You begin to see that fear is an illusion, that failure is feedback, that rejection is redirection. You begin to understand that life doesn't test you to punish you. It tests you to prepare you. And once you grasp that, you become untouchable, because nothing the world throws at you can take away the fire that's been forged inside of you. And look at the moments in history where the greatest breakthroughs were born. They weren't born in times of ease. They were born in times of chaos, in times of struggle, in times of pain. Leaders were formed in wars. Visionaries were formed in crises. Innovators were formed in failure. Every advancement humanity has ever known came because someone decided to turn their pain into possibility, and now it's your turn. And your pain may not look like anyone else's. It doesn't have to. Maybe your pain was growing up without support. Maybe it was being told you'd never be enough. Maybe it was losing someone you loved. Maybe it was being betrayed by the very people you trusted most. Maybe it was failing again and again when you gave everything you had. Whatever it was, it carved something unique into you. It built a resilience no one can take away. It gave you insight no one else has. It gave you perspective that could save someone else's life if you choose to share it. That's the gift hidden in the wound. But here's the truth. You cannot step fully into purpose while holding on to blame. Blame keeps you shackled. Blame keeps you small. Blame keeps your focus locked on the past instead of the future. And blame may feel justified. You may have every reason to point the finger at those who hurt you, abandoned you, or doubted you. But the moment you hold on to blame, you hand over your power. Because as long as it's their fault, you're not free. And the instant you take full ownership, the instant you say, it may not be my fault, but it is my responsibility, everything shifts. That doesn't mean excusing what happened. It means refusing to let it imprison you any longer. It means choosing freedom over resentment, growth over bitterness, future over past. That choice right there is the hinge on which your destiny swings. And so ask yourself, what if the very thing you've been resenting is the thing that could release you? What if the very wound you've been hiding is the very gift that could set you free? What if the exact experience you've been trying to forget is the one that, if embraced, could become the reason you wake up every morning with fire in your soul? That's the paradox of pain. The place you fear the most often holds the key to the purpose you crave the most. And there is nothing wrong with pain. What's wrong is staying in it when you have the power to transform it. What's wrong is living your life chained to the past when the present is begging you to rise. What's wrong is letting what hurt you once hurt you forever when you have the ability to turn it into the reason you live free. And let's be clear, this isn't about denying the reality of what you've been through. It's about mastering the meaning, because you can either let your pain be the anchor that keeps you stuck or the engine that drives you forward. You can either let it be the excuse that keeps you small or the reason you rise. That choice is yours, always yours. And now imagine the power of making that choice every single day. Imagine waking up and deciding, today I will use everything. Today I will not waste my pain. Today I will live with purpose. Imagine carrying that mindset into your relationships, your work, your goals, your dreams. How much stronger would you be? How much more unstoppable? How much more alive? And that's the mental shift that changes everything. Because once you make that choice, life stops being something you endure and starts being something you create. You stop asking for things to be easy and start demanding that you become stronger. You stop waiting for perfect conditions and start moving, knowing that growth comes from movement, not from waiting. And your purpose is waiting. It's been calling you through every hardship, whispering to you through every trial. echoing in your heart every time you ask, why me? The answer is this: because you're meant to use it, because you're meant to rise from it, because you're meant to take the very thing that tried to break you and turn it into the reason others believe they can rise too. That's your gift. That's your power. That's the shift that makes you unstoppable. And absolutely, here's the direct 1,000-word continuation, picking up exactly where the third part ended and keeping the same high-energy motivational flow. And that's your gift. That's your power. That's the shift that makes you unstoppable. And because when you truly embody that shift, you no longer see obstacles as walls. You see them as weights in the gym of life. You understand that every resistance is designed to build your strength. You stop resenting the challenge and start welcoming it because you know that without resistance, there is no growth. And suddenly, the very things that once made you cry out in despair now make you lean forward with determination. You whisper to yourself, this too is shaping me. This too is preparing me. This too will serve me. And then in that state, fear loses its grip. Fear is nothing more than anticipation of pain. But when you no longer see pain as punishment, when you see it as preparation, what's left to fear? Fear dissolves, anxiety fades. You start to move boldly, take risks, speak your truth, step into rooms you once thought you didn't belong in because you've stopped running from the possibility of pain. You've embraced it as part of the process. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop fearing pain, you stop suffering. Suffering only exists when you resist what is. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Pain is the wound. Suffering is the story you tell yourself about that wound. The moment you decide to tell a different story, the suffering ends and the healing begins. That's why this shift is so powerful. It doesn't erase your past. It redeems it. And think of the people who left their mark on the world. Their legacies weren't born from lives of ease. They were born from hardship. They didn't inspire millions because everything went right. They inspired because they faced what went wrong and turned it into something meaningful. They refused to let pain have the last word, and neither should you. And there is a strength inside you right now that you haven't even begun to touch. The trials you faced were not random. They were designed to awaken that strength, to push you to discover just how much you are capable of. The heartbreak, the failure, the betrayal, it wasn't to destroy you. It was to demand that you rise higher, dig deeper, and discover that within you lies a power greater than the pain. And so ask yourself, what would happen if you decided right now that nothing in your life has been wasted, that not a single moment of pain has been meaningless, that every ounce of it is now fuel, is now wisdom, is now clarity? Imagine how free you'd feel. Imagine how unstoppable you'd become. Because when you believe that, you stop regretting the past and start leveraging it. You stop hiding your scars and start showing them as proof that healing is possible. And that proof is exactly what the world needs. The truth is, people are starving for authenticity. They're not looking for perfect examples. They're looking for real ones. They're looking for someone who can say, I've been where you are. I know the darkness. I know the pain. And here's what I discovered on the other side. That's how you become a light. That's how you transform not only your own life, but the lives of everyone you touch. And then maybe that's why you're here right now. Maybe that's why you've carried the weight you've carried. Maybe that's why the pain seemed relentless at times, because it wasn't about you alone. It was about the people your story will reach, the lives your strength will inspire, the chains your courage will break. You went through it not just to survive, but to lead, to guide, to empower. But here's the truth. None of this happens by accident. You must choose it. You must decide that your story will not end in defeat. You must declare that your wounds will not define you. They will refine you. You must choose every single day to stand in the fire and keep walking forward, knowing that on the other side is not just survival, but purpose, destiny, impact. And then let's be clear, you don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to have the perfect plan. You don't need to know exactly how the purpose will unfold. All you need is the decision that you will no longer waste your pain. All you need is the decision that everything you've faced will now serve you instead of enslave you. From that decision, everything else flows, because purpose doesn't start with clarity, it starts with commitment. Clarity comes as you walk the path. And think of your life as a canvas. For years, pain may have splattered it with colors you didn't choose, strokes you didn't want, but now you hold the brush. You have the power to take those dark colors and blend them into a masterpiece. You have the power to turn chaos into beauty. You have the power to paint a future that honors every part of your journey. But the brush won't move until you pick it up. And then once you do, once you start creating with intention, you'll see that the very things you thought ruined the picture are the things that give it depth, contrast, richness. The dark makes the light shine brighter. The pain makes the joy more profound. The struggle makes the triumph unforgettable. That's the art of life, using every shade, every stroke, every experience, and turning it into something extraordinary. And now imagine looking back on your life years from now. Will you see a story of wasted pain, of potential left unrealized, of a person who let hardship steal their light? Or will you see a story of resilience, of courage, of relentless transformation? Will you see someone who chose to rise again and again until their life became a beacon of what's possible? That choice is being written right now in this moment with the decisions you make from here forward. And because the truth is, you don't get to choose whether pain visits your life, but you do get to choose what you do with it. You don't get to control what happens to you, but you absolutely control what it means and what you create from it. And that is the difference between a life of quiet desperation and a life of unstoppable purpose. And so the question is not will you face pain? You already have. The question is, what will you do with it now? Will you let it remain a chain that rags you down, or will you forge it into armor that makes you unstoppable? Will you let it silence your voice, or will you use it to amplify your message? Will you let it define your weakness, or will you let it reveal your strength? And the decision is in your hands, always has been, always will be. And the moment you choose to rise, the moment you choose to transform, the moment you choose to live with unstoppable purpose, that's the moment your life shifts forever.